And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily on a Monday evening, or Tuesday evening, I guess. Really appreciate you guys spending some time with us once again as we discuss the latest surrounding the MLB trade deadline. Just a few weeks away, some new news popping up today around Sandy Alcantara, the Rangers, and the possibility of what could happen with Adolis Garcia, and some really interesting scores around Major League Baseball tonight that have significant impacts on the trade deadline, whether teams will be buyers and sellers. We'll also touch on the availability of certain players like Sandy Alcantara. We'll touch on other players like Alex Bregman, who may or may not be on the market by the trade deadline. But be sure to hit the like at the bottom of the video. It goes a long way to helping us out. Say hello in the chat, and let's get into some actual trade talk, shall we? I wanted to start tonight with a couple of different news items that I did see. There has been some rumors regarding the Milwaukee Brewers and their pursuit of Adolis Garcia from the Texas Rangers. Texans have pretty much considered themselves to be a buyer all season long, even considering how poor their offense has gone. Now, Garcia is one of the players that has struggled this year at times, but certainly would give a nice boost to a very young Milwaukee Brewer squad. They have been mentioned as one of the more prominent pursuers of Adolis Garcia, but again, in a buyer's situation here for the Rangers, are they really willing to give up the money or give up Adolis Garcia's impact because they want to save a few dollars and recoup some assets? Or are they going to try to push the pedal down? I think the latter is more likely, but standing pat is also an option as well. Welcome in, Sarah. I love that my L team won the Yankees' big win over against the Mariners. Absolutely, the Yankees needed it. Thank you for the amazing content. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate you saying those things. Really does help us out and really encourages me. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Let's go ahead and get into a couple of the scores anyway that kind of caught my eye just before we came on the air. Is it a full moon or something? It is after July 4th, so I guess it's technically spooky season. But since when do the Texas Rangers score 5 runs in an inning? That's what happened today when they faced the Los Angeles Angels, currently winning 5-1. Nathan Eovaldi on the mound there. Rangers have the bases loaded currently with only 1 out. Kind of a repeat of what happened last inning with Wyatt Langford coming up in a very similar spot. Hit a 2-run double down the line, and they had another 2-run double, and then a run-scoring single as well. So we'll see if the Rangers can keep the hot bats rolling tonight. But this is an aberration for the Rangers offense. This has not been a good offensive team this year. And to just kind of show you the point of how bad this offense has been, their best offensive players, by the numbers, would tell you Josh Smith hitting 283 so far. His average actually dropped a little bit today after going 0 for 2 with a walk. But you look at Corey Seager only hitting 252. You're looking at Evan Carter hitting 272. Those are your two highest hitting or the highest averages on the team right now. The rest of the team 230. 227, 225, 228, 227, 224. You're looking at Josh Young, who certainly had his numbers tumble down there as well. Jock Peterson, who's hitting below 200 this year. Rangers need offense this year, and it's not just the Rangers. Offense in general is just harder to come by as far as average as well. I understand average isn't the end-all be-all that it once was. I understand that. But I also understand that when you look at, this is the numbers from 1998, look how many guys ended up finishing the season with a 300 average or better. 49 guys. 49. Currently, we are looking at, of qualified hitters, 9 players. 9 hitting above 300. I get times are different. Things are very different as far as how batters really approach things in the box. But 9 hitters hitting over 300. Now I expect that number to grow with Luis Ariz, but that's only one more guy. Maybe 1 or 2 of these guys bumps above that mark, but it's way below what we've seen in years past. Now, of course, that was the middle of the steroid era. You're wondering what ultimately happened last year? Well, let's take a look. Last year, of the qualified hitters, 7 players ended up hitting over 300. It's just so difficult. I guess I could say it's so difficult in these times, I suppose, to hit for a high average. Pitching being as good as it is, all those kinds of things. But it's just really difficult to see that, see those numbers and not realize something's really missing in our game. we worry about viewership in years past, and viewership's gone up anyway since COVID. Baseball is having a little bit of a resurgence as far as that's concerned. The small market teams having issues with their local media contracts also has been going on during this time, and yet baseball's still doing very, very well, making very nice revenues, drawing well at the gate as well. The game is still doing very well financially, but at a certain point, you just have to realize the game that we are used to seeing, that we grew up with, is no longer the same. Speaking of one of my favorite players ever to watch, Andres Galarraga. Great story, by the way. Cancer survivor. Anyway, sorry, I just saw his name pop up. Just really loved his play. The Big Cat, anyway, was his nickname back then. If you guys are younger and don't remember him, I invite you guys to look him up. Really incredible player. Brendan Donovan just went yard to tie it 2-2. Nats and Cards. That's good. But in kind of the get off my lawn portion of today's video, it's just, this is unsustainable for me. If baseball's going to get better, if teams are going to start performing better offensively, to where we don't constantly have to say, hey, offense is down for the Rangers, offense is down for the Mariners for the last couple of years, offense is down for team X, Y, or Z. How about we just start getting back to these types of numbers where you're focused on contact rate, getting the bat on the baseball, playing a little pepper with it, having a two-strike approach instead of having to get your A swing off. That's something that's been kind of sticking in my craw anyway the last couple of days, and it's just really tough for me to watch games where the three true outcomes really took over the sport for the better part of about 5-6 years, and I think it's left players with really bad habits at the plate, and I think the manifestation of that can really be seen on a team like the Rangers, where nobody is really doing anything different. And while they certainly are trying to change their approach here by bringing in a more conventional hitter-friendly coach anyway, and Brett Boone, kind of getting some old-school thought process in there, I think it's going to take a lot more than that to kind of solve the issues that the Rangers have and that Major League Baseball has as a whole. Let's see how that bases loaded situation ended up working out. Did they get a sacrifice fly? Nope. Well, maybe they did. Yep, they did get a bases loaded walk. That's what the Angels did to win the game last night. You remember Galarraga? He was a stud? Absolutely. I love the Big Cat. I didn't really watch him much in Colorado. I was 8 years old at the time when he was in with the Atlanta Braves. That's where I really remember him from. And I really loved watching him play. Let me see. They got him up in the Rockies uniform, I suppose. Just look how good he was, dude. And I remember he played for the Rangers at one period of time as well. Played 72 games in 2001. One of my favorite players on one of my favorite teams. His career was certainly winding down by this point, but man, look how the consistent numbers in this period of time were. Anyway, just really liked watching him play. All right, let's get back to some of the scores from around baseball. Oh, looks like they scored another couple of runs here. Jake Berger waking up offensively. Rangers would really welcome that. He's 2 for 3 RBIs now on the day. Bottom of the lineup has been better of the last week or so as well. You love Jim Edmonds. I think he got snubbed from Hall of Fame consideration way too early, Sarah. A lot of the center fielders of that time really got snubbed. Bernie Williams deserved a lot longer look. Kenny Lofton deserved a lot longer look. Ken Griffey Jr. was a lot of fun to watch. One of the smoothest players you'll ever see on the field. Kind of the equivalent for me, if you're kind of a more modern baseball fan and you never watched any of these players play, the slide Trey Turner has, it's the too cool for school kind of a slide. That was Ken Griffey Jr.'s swing. Just absolute poetry in motion. All right, let's check in on a few of the games anyway. Houston tied it in the 8th inning anyway, scoring 2 in the bottom of the 8th, tying the game 6-6 against the Guardians. Blue Jays look to go for 10 straight wins, up 6-1 currently over the White Sox in a weather delay there. Scoreless, Diamondbacks and Padres. We just talked about the Rangers there. San Francisco 1-0 over the Phillies. Your Cardinals, as you mentioned, have now taken the lead 3-2 over the Nationals. The A's 9-0 currently over the Braves. Can you say it's over for Atlanta any faster than you can after seeing that score? Mets win it in 10, 7-6 over the Orioles, and 4-2 the Tigers beat the Rays. Last few games here, Yankees club the Mariners. Boston slugs the Rockies. Marlins drum the Reds there. Royals 4-3 winners over Pittsburgh. And Twins continue to win a few games here. 8-1 winners over Chicago. Mark, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. The Rangers need too much to be serious contenders. Need too much? I'm going to put that in quotations. I'm not. A lot of these fan bases nowadays are just hot and cold. One day they win, 10-4. The next day they lose 1-0, and they say, we can't hit our way out of a wet paper bag. Well, you just hit well the night before. Baseball is it's a very long game. It's a 162 game season, and you're going to have days where you're not able to hit, even when you're the greatest team in baseball history. There's just going to be bad days. But there's also going to be good days for even those bad teams out there. That's why, even any given Sunday was one of the best phrases football ever came up with to kind of generate interest in their sport. Any given Sunday a team can win. Any given game a team can win in the 162 game long season like this. Rangers just scored again on a Higashioka single. Don't look now, but the Rangers' offense is smoking. Wow. Anyway. Mark, the Rangers need too much to be serious contenders. I still think that the Rangers, as far as needs for me, they just need to get a little bit better production from the pieces that they have. Just a small little change here or there, I think, really tunes this lineup up a little bit. They add one more piece here, and I think that really solves their issues offensively. On the pitching side of things, I think their rotation is fine. I think they could use some depth. They always like to go out there and get depth if they're going to try to contend in the postseason with Chris Young as GM, and I think they're going to be in a very similar situation this year. You look at their bullpen, I think their guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th inning, they're going to be just fine. The question is, what do they do in the 9th? And that's where I think they need to get a big addition there. But for me, I don't think they need necessarily so many different needs here. Could they use a bat? Sure. But I'm not necessarily breaking the bank for a bat, especially with as good as the pitching has been. You add a lockdown closer back there, instead of losing a lot of these games late because your bullpen implodes in the 9th because they can't handle the pressure, because the 9th inning is a different animal, give it to somebody who can handle that animal and allow your guys to feast in those early relief outings or into that 7th and 8th inning. That's where the Rangers have had a lot of success. That's why they've been their number one bullpen in baseball since the beginning of June. And the best pitching staff in baseball so far this season. Sarah, Ohtani is the Babe Ruth of this generation. Absolutely. I was looking up some interesting stats anyway from around baseball, and a lot of the conventional stats. You're talking ERA. You're talking batting average, OPS, slug, all those kinds of things. Those have really important value in the game today. But I'm sure other front offices out there have their own internal metrics. Numbers that we might not even recognize. For instance, they might not be looking at any of the traditional stats that we look at nowadays when they're actually identifying players. One person that I follow on TikTok, actually, she came up with some of her own interesting stats that kind of show the impact of the slugging percentage. If your slugging percentage is, say, 600, but you only make contact with, say, 4 baseballs, and 3 of them are hard hit, 1 of them's not, but yet you strike out 5,000 times, your impact is going to be so much lower, even though your slugging percentage is going to be so much higher. And so she kind of came up with a few different stats to kind of quantify the numbers that are out there. And really curious to see if baseball starts going back to the volume stats that we used to have, where you're looking at home runs, RBIs, and hits, as well as the newer numbers that we're looking at, OPS and slug and all those kinds of things, xWOBA, etc. Kind of mesh the two a little bit more and allow volume to have a little bit more of an impact than what it has in the past. I think getting your A swing off, well and good and all, but if you're only making contact 1 out of every 7 pitches, it doesn't really mean you're getting on base a lot. It doesn't mean you're driving the ball a lot. It means that you're not making contact enough and you're not not on the base paths causing havoc or anything like that. And I think having a good blend there is really what's needed and something that's missing from the commentary of the sports world today. Let's see here. Mark, need some late inning guys in bullpen. Need a few bats to get more consistent 4 to 5 runs a game for 20 out of 30 games. Well, if you look over the last 20 games, look at the Rangers' offense. Right now, I believe over the last 20 games, they're averaging over 5 runs a game. You look at the pitching staff, their starting staff's been fine. The bullpen been number one in the sport. As far as a late inning bullpen arm, 7th, 8th inning guys, I think they got 4 guys who can do that role right now. One of them is in the minor leagues in Cole Winn because they don't have enough roster spots to bring him up. They do need a high leverage closer in my mind, though, and that's the one point I'll agree with you on. As far as needing a few bats, who are you taking out of this lineup first and foremost? You're probably not taking out Smith. He's having a great year. Seager makes too much. He's been very good for you at times. Simeon makes too much and has been better as of late. Has been struggling the past week, but 2 runs so far today shows that he might be getting back out of it once again. Adolis Garcia, ever since he got sat down for that mental talk, has been hitting, I believe, in the 260 range, which is about what his career averages are. His power numbers are still lagging behind, but they will come. Jonah Heim, that could be one spot where you try to improve, but catching on a whole has not been good around the sport. Langford obviously isn't coming out of the lineup, so you're not replacing him. Carter is kind of a platoon guy out there in center, but you're not taking away his at-bats, so you're not taking him out. Haggerty's been good for you, so he's going to be kind of the platoon out there as well in that center field spot, I would imagine. He's not coming out. First base with Jake Berger, absolutely could use an upgrade, but he's making next to nothing. So for a team that's worried about the tax and so forth, for a guy that makes nothing, whoever they acquire is going to have to be a significant improvement in order to jeopardize their tax position. Higashioka obviously has not been a great signing for the Rangers. Hopefully this past week is showing some signs of life for his bat. We saw a little bit of that in San Diego, and again a hit today, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes for this catching tandem. I would not rule out a surprise trade from that catching group, though, for the Rangers. As far as third base, the guy who's going to really hold it down is Josh Young, at least internally right now. Right now, I believe he's 2 for 4 in his first minor league game since being sent down. He's mainly working on his approach at the plate, avoiding being so antsy at the plate, not rushing things, those kinds of things. And once he solves those issues, I think he'll be back in the big league club. But is he a long-term answer at third base anymore? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think the Rangers know either. And I think this might be the last full year of Josh Young at third base if things continue to go as poorly as they have so far this, last 2.5 months for Josh Young. He's been a real leader, clubhouse leader for them, and I don't think the Rangers are anywhere near willing to give up on him. But at a certain point, you just gotta, try to improve your team in any way possible. And if that's at third base this offseason with an Alex Bregman, so be it. You move Young or you move Bregman somewhere else, and at least make your lineup better on the whole. Sarah, I just want the Rangers to beat the Astros. I can't stand them. I think there's very few teams. A few fan bases out there that can really tolerate the Astros after the trash can instance, those kinds of things. Understandably, it's not the end-all, be-all story for the Astros and their dynasty. And yes, they do kind of have their own dynasty over the last, 10, 15 years anyway. Around 2015, so about 10 years, is when their winning ways really got going. And kind of been the model franchise for the past 10 years. Dodgers are in that same conversation, but with the controversy around the trash cans, etc., stealing signs, etc. Those are really the issues that most fan bases have with the Astros. That and the complete unabashed cockiness, bravado from the players during that time period that basically said, so what, get over it, we ain't doing nothing wrong, got caught and busted, and it cost their GM and their manager their jobs. So obviously it did matter to some people in the baseball world. But let's see here, Mark, that should have given them a 22-8 stretch. That is what I meant. I get your point there. I was watching another show the other day. Anyway, I think it was it Locked On Locked On Rangers anyway. Anyway, but the Rangers over this course of the season anyway should be 49 and 41 so far this season, and that's just not where they are. That tells me the team has underperformed. And they're making the case that, yes, they should absolutely be buying because they're better than what their numbers really indicate. And while that's true, it also means you're underperforming in those close game situations. The tie game going into the 10th inning and not coming through with the wins in the last couple of weeks here. That's really hurt the Rangers from that standpoint. All right, I don't just want to make this all about the Rangers. I do want to get into some actual trade talk tonight anyway. I want to touch on Sandy Alcantara as well. His name has been out there for quite a bit of time now. And the Marlins came into the season with the idea that he would be the biggest trade asset at the deadline for them. Obviously, the season didn't go as swimmingly as they had hoped, and I think they're going to hold on to him until the offseason when his value will be rehabbed a little bit. Teams, the entire league anyway, will be able to bid on his services, not just playoff teams. And I think the price for poker will go up at that time. Unlikely that he does move. Now, let me pull your attention over here to the MLB trade rumors. They have the top 40 guys who could be moved here at the deadline. Number one for them, Sandy Alcantara. We just talked about him. I just don't see it. I think the prices are going to be higher for the Marlins in the offseason, and they don't necessarily need to do it right now. There's no impetus to do it. Mitch Keller they have as number two. I think he's a really good option as kind of a 2-3 this year and could develop into something better down the road. But for this year, there's a few teams that have kicked the tires. I think Boston was one such team. The Mets were another one. I'm pretty sure I'm missing another team. I think it was a Northeast team. But Keller's a very good pitcher. Not necessarily an ace, but could be a 3, a low-end 2 in somebody's rotation right now, and could elevate his numbers anyway to a number 2 status. But for the Pirates, I don't think they'll trade him either. So go ahead and scratch those two off the board for me. Number 3 for me is where things start on this list with David Bednar. Having a nice return ever since being sent down to AAA earlier this year. He's been very, very good. In 28 and 2/3 innings, throwing a 1.88 ERA. With a really nice strikeout rate around 37%. Looks like we're getting back to the old David Bednar we saw years ago, and that's a great thing for the Pirates. Ryan O'Hearn, they have him number 4. I do think he will be moved. Not really seen as a long-term fit for the Orioles organization, and he could probably do better on the free agent market this offseason anyway. He will be moved. Seattle is a popular team I've been seeing as linked to Ryan O'Hearn. As far as number 5, Andrew Heaney, having a nice year for the Pirates, got a little bit shelled in his last start though, but on a very reasonable contract, could easily be had for next to nothing on the market right now, and I think it'd be just another way for the Pirates to continue to add talent. But we'll see where this goes. Heaney, I think, would be a great 4th, 5th starter for somebody going into the postseason, or maybe a middle relief guy who can come in and do some bulk work in the postseason to at least keep teams close. When the starter really doesn't have it that day. Ryan McMahon, they have number 6, being connected to the Yankees over the last 24 hours. Unlikely, still is my position on this one, but we shall see what the Rockies' decision is. They're not really going anywhere right now. They don't really have a direction. But he's one of the few veterans on this roster to kind of shepherd the young guys that they're going to be bringing in. Jeffrey Springs, number 7 for the A's. I don't really see this as a overly likely option because of kind of the bandbox out there with the A's. You don't really know what kind of numbers to expect from a pitcher coming in from that type of a scenario. So we'll see how that thing kind of unfolds. Cedric Mullins, great on-base guy, great guy to have on the bases for speed, all those kinds of things. But defensively, he's very much a liability at this point, and will be a free agent at the end of the year, making $8.75. You're really going to have to love the player in order to go after him based off of his arm. And the fact that you have to give up assets for an expiring asset in return. You'd take Lugo, I would as well. Dennis Santana for the Pirates, kind of that 8th inning setup guy for them. I don't think he's going to Texas, even though he's familiar with the team. I think things ended poorly in how they utilized him. For the Pirates, though, obviously they're not going to be competing for anything this year, but he could be a very nice arm for them to try to recoup some value on. I do expect him to be moved. Jake Bird, unlikely to move as far as I'm concerned. I just think they're going to hold on to him for the Rockies. He's pre-arb anyway, and then we'll see, as he gets into arbitration years, if those numbers get a little higher, if the Rockies start to balk at paying those numbers for a relief pitcher. Seth Lugo, number 11 here, making only $15 million this year, $15 million player option next year, has a sub-3 ERA. Last time I looked, it was 2.3 something, 2.6. Currently 2.21 according to the site. 15 starts. He's been very good so far. One of the trades that I posted, I saw a comment anyway, that Miles Michaelis does have a no trade, so I get that one. But I could see that the Royals, and I could see a trade that comes together between those two teams that really kind of gets the Cardinals the starting pitching that they're looking for, the right-hand bat that they're looking for. If they try to do all their shopping at the Royals, I think they could easily get everything done with the Royals there. Question is, what are you willing to give up? Marcell Ozuna, they have way too high on this list for me. He's hitting, 170 over the last month or so. He's not a good bet here at this trade deadline. After we get through the All-Star break, if he somehow has a nice resurgence over the final 3 weeks before the trade deadline, maybe he could be something that could be moved. but he's making $16 million. No team's going to be willing to take on that contract right now without the Braves taking money. And I don't think the Braves are willing to do that. I think that Anthopoulos has made his position very clear. He does not want to trade unless he absolutely has to, and he's waiting to make that decision. Marquez at 14, not really doing anything. I don't think he should be traded by the Rockies. I don't think anybody should be targeting Savali, $8 million deal. Had the trade for Andrew Vaughn earlier this year when the Brewers basically said, hey, you're not willing to move to the bullpen? You want out of here? No problem. We'll send you on to the White Sox. He could be traded yet again here. Not necessarily to be a postseason starter for somebody, but somebody who could soak up a couple innings here or there. Hauser, who's having a nice year for the White Sox, making very little money this year. Probably going to be used as a long relief guy in a really good team, but he's having nice numbers this year. I think his best bet for his future is staying there in Chicago for at least another year or two. Sanchez, again, anything that's not nailed down for the Marlins, I think is available. He would qualify. Finnegan doesn't move the needle a whole lot for me as far as a team looking for a closer. So if you're looking for bullpen help, I suppose, but I'm not necessarily writing home about trading for Kyle Finnegan at this trade deadline. Maybe I'll eat my words, but I just don't think he's necessarily going to be the second coming of the greatest relief pitcher ever. And for that reason, for what Finnegan brings, I think there are better options out there for the prices you'd have to pay to acquire him. Nathaniel Lowe for the Nationals, I think was an easy choice to be traded at this year's deadline after they acquired him in the offseason. I thought that was a deal that was most likely, or the trade anyway from Texas anyway, that was a deal that was most likely going to end up with Lowe being pivoted to another team at the deadline. I think we'll see that happen here relatively soon. Liddell for the Rays to round out the top 20. Very likely that the Rays want to move him. Is somebody willing to pay the price to bring him in? Severino at 21, again, with the ballpark there, I have no idea how good of a player he is. Going to take some time to adapt. If you do trade for him, lots of questions there. Luis Robert from the White Sox, to me, this is a non-tradable asset. I would not move him at all. Makes too much money, doesn't perform enough, injured, all those kinds of issues. I'm just done with it at this point for Robert. Benintendi, not exactly a beacon of success in baseball anymore, seen as a bat-first player whose bat has not been well for a while now, and he's got lots of money locked up in his deal, so he will not be moved either. Josh Naylor, we've talked about him in other videos, how the Diamondbacks aren't looking to sell, but they could do a little bit of buying and selling here. By trading away a Naylor, they acquire a piece to kind of fill in easily for Josh Naylor and to get a couple future assets out of the deal altogether for a guy who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Jays win 6-1, 10 in a row. Let's go. All right. That's good to hear. Blue Jays fans everywhere, I'm sure, are rejoicing. Rangers have added another run, 10-1. What did they do? Hit a home run? Yep, Corey Seager belted his 13th, 10-1. Heim hits a single here. He's a guy that really needs to figure things out offensively there. Very interesting. But yes, your Jays are now 10-game win streak. You have to play all 162 games. Your opponent is who your opponent is. Not to say that it's not the easiest cakewalk in the world, but just to say that it's not exactly the stiffest competition out there right now for the Blue Jays, which is what they need after what was a very competitive series against the Yankees over the weekend, where the Yankees basically laid an egg. Seems like they've solved their issue as well with a big win over the Mariners. All right. Let's see. Tomorrow we're going to have quite a bit longer of a video. We're going to get into a lot of trade talk. I wanted to do some trades tonight, but unfortunately today, I told you guys I had an early work day today, and unfortunately I had to stay a lot longer than was expected by a few hours. So I am absolutely wiped. We will get into some actual trades and building some trades tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow, so we'll probably do a couple of short videos, have those post throughout the day. But we're probably going to do a couple of different lives. One of the lives I want to do one of the games that's going on tomorrow. The games I'm leaning towards, we got Rays in Detroit at noon, Philadelphia, San Francisco around 3 o'clock, M's and Yanks at 6, Rangers and Angels at 8:40 in the nightcap. I'm debating on doing at least one of those games live with you guys, do some trade talk like we did on Sunday. I invite you guys to check out that video. We did a ton of trades in that video. Same thing last night as well. So please check out those videos. Lots of good information in those. And we'll get into some trades tomorrow as well. We also will have our MLB power rankings coming out tomorrow as well. We'll do that one in the nightcap. So be sure to join us for a full day of MLB trade deadline coverage. Submit some names to us. We want to get some interesting trades out there. I know there are some fan bases out there that are watching this video right now that are not participating in the chat. Let us know who you want to see moved at the deadline. If you're a fan of the Philadelphia Phillies, I know when we started this channel, we had tons of Philadelphia Phillies fans in there. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know who you guys would like to go after at the deadline. I'm hearing Cedric Mullins could be one of the names that could be headed your way at the deadline. Greg Amsinger was doing a kind of a Twitter thing earlier today. In fact, I'll pull it up. I actually have it pulled up on my screen already because I wanted to talk about this list for them. Amsinger, he was talking about how Alcantara is just unlikely to move because his value is depressed. Arenado, because of the value depression and the contract, he doesn't think he'll be moved as well. IKF, former Ranger, former Twin, former Met, basically bounced around the last few years anyway since he started his tenure with the Rangers a long time ago. But he's very likely to move. I think he'd be a good defensive infield option for somebody out there. Adolis Garcia, I think there's a lot of teams expecting the Rangers to sell at the deadline, and I just don't think it's going to happen, even though I think that cooler heads normally would prevail here and say, hey, this is not our year. We need to go ahead and sell. I think the Rangers are very competitive and are unwilling anyway, to wave the white flag. We talked about Heaney, McMahon, Mullins. Amsinger says is very likely in his mind to end up with the Phillies. I think that one's a great fit. They need better offense out there anyway. Now the defense becomes a question, but they've never had an issue with struggling defensively, especially when you consider how they had Kyle Schwarber out there in the outfield. Not exactly a great defender out there. O'Hearn, we mentioned already. Robert is not expected to move, in my mind, at the deadline. And Eugenio Suarez, Amsinger says this one has Yankees written all over it. And while I think they do need a third baseman, with Jazz moving over to second base, by the way, that announcement coming earlier today. But this is just kind of a natural fit for them. They need a third baseman. I think this is about clearing a spot for whoever they ultimately acquire. But is Eugenio Suarez at the top of their list? No. They are still talking about other options. I think the list for third baseman was 8 deep. But you also have to consider what the Yankees' true needs are at the deadline. We're talking starting pitching. We're talking a closer, somebody along those lines. But those are some of the names that we saw from Greg Amsinger when he was doing his TikTok earlier today for MLB Network. Welcome in Anthony. Welcome in John. Why did Brian De La Cruz and Everson get pulled from the lineup today? I have not heard that, unfortunately. We'll be getting into some of those rumors tomorrow during our live, so I do invite you guys to join us for that one. Let me update our page here, see if anything else has changed. Guardians have jumped out to a 10-6 lead in extras after surrendering a 2-run lead in the 8th inning to the Astros. We'll see if they can hold on to it there in extras. Diamondbacks Padres are still scoreless. Yu Darvish took the ball for the first time this year the other day. Excited to see how he finishes his season. His son actually is a high-value prep pitcher in the San Diego area and has a really good chance at being a future name in the sport. So kind of keep your eye on that one for years down the line. Phillies 1-1 again with the Giants as they come back to tie it. We'll see if they have a similar result to last night's game where they were 1-1 through 7, and then the offense finally showed up for one of them there. Cardinals still 3-2 currently over the Nationals. A's still 10-0 over the Braves. I think their season is pretty much done at this point. They will drop, looks like, to 39-51 on the year. They should absolutely be selling this season. According to Greg, who does he feel was the favorite for Sandy? He said nobody, because he doesn't feel that the prices out there right now are anywhere near what the Marlins value him at. And as such, they'll wait until the offseason when his value is a little bit higher. He shows that he's healthy. The numbers that you can point to and say, hey, he's still a dominant pitcher, are all going to be there. But as far as a favorite, he mentioned teams that are looking for an ace if a trade does get done. Again, it's pretty much all the same teams you'd expect. We've mentioned some of those before, Cubs, Mets, etc., and I'd expect it to be pretty much something like that if a trade does get done. Now remember, he's not an insider. He's a TV host. So he does get a little bit more information because he does work with insiders. But again, he's still a fan of Major League Baseball at heart. And while I think his predictions carry some weight with the average baseball fan, he's not necessarily the insiders, the information about what's happening behind the scenes as far as what trades are going where. That's kind of the part that's missing from his analysis in my mind. But that's also what makes him a great host, is that he's acknowledged that and kind of allowed the players and managers and GMs that he's worked with there at MLB Network to really have that platform and really demonstrate the knowledge they have for the game. Something that those of us are the thinking fan, as they say, for MLB Now on MLB Network, The thinking fan for all of us, really enjoys those different perspectives, so that we open up our minds to different ways of thinking when it comes to baseball success. All right. Oh, by the way, the network is having the best numbers viewership-wise since pre-COVID, which is good for the game. Maybe this will help other teams kind of solve their issues with their local TV contracts. We saw the success the Rangers have had so far this year. Even with poor offense, they're still drawing very well. Their revenues, of course, are a lot higher this year because of that TV money, and we'll have to see how things work out. Anthony, what are your opinions on my Marlins blowing out the Reds? Another good development process here for the Marlins. I want to see how they go through a tough stretch, how they respond to adversity, how they respond to close games. Those are really what I'm looking for the next steps for the future of your Marlins. But again, it's going to be all about the youth movement there for them going forward. It's going to be about 20 and under prospects, position players, and just see what you have to work with beyond that. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be live again tomorrow a few different times. We'll have a few videos coming out as well. So be sure to hit the like at the bottom of the video. We'll get into a lot of trade talk tomorrow. So around noon, 1 o'clock is when we'll probably do our first live, depending on which game we end up deciding to do. Again, let us know what trades you guys want us to see. Let us know your favorite team, where you're watching from, who you'd like to be traded, who you want to see go to your team. What would you be willing to give up? Because I'd love to discuss all of those with you. Again, the games we're thinking about doing tomorrow, let us know in the comment section which of those you'd like us to do. Rays, Tigers, Phillies, Giants, M's, Yankees, or Rangers, and Angels. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us. Stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow night.